Man, there are games that many people left unfinished, whether because of the difficulty, the odd pacing, or simply because they went unnoticed, but they still hide incredible moments that are absolutely worth it. Today we're revisiting those titles that most players never reach the end of, but that are true masterpieces if you give them another chance.
1. Dragon Age Inquisition. Let's kick things off with a massive RPG that a lot of people dropped early because of its sheer scale. Dragon Age Inquisition. I totally get why folks abandoned it. The initial zones were massive, but felt a little empty. It was a tough, slow start. But man, the moment the game opens up and the core narrative of closing the rifts really takes hold, it becomes an unstoppable epic. The storytelling is classic BioWare, focusing on deep companion relationships and impactful political decisions. Finding the right mix for your party and navigating the complex dialogue trees is where the value truly lies. What I absolutely loved was the class specialization system. Mastering the Reaver or the Knight Enchanter completely changes the tactical combat loop and is incredibly rewarding. My personal experience? Spending hours in the menus customizing my gear, only to realize I was about to walk into an incredible, unexpected set-piece battle. If you can push past the initial fetch quest-heavy areas in the hinterlands, you'll find an absurdly deep, beautiful fantasy world. Inquisition is worth every penny for its narrative scope, companion chemistry, and tactical combat depth.
2. The Evil Within 2. Next up is a survival horror game that deserves so much more love than it got. The Evil Within 2. The first game was a little too frantic, but this sequel nailed the atmosphere and open-ended survival that makes it unforgettable. The core value here is the seamless blend of focused horror and semi-open world exploration. You're dumped into the corrupted town of Union, and the game forces you to stock your resources and manage every single bullet. That sense of vulnerability and resource scarcity is what hooks you. What turned some people off was the pacing. The open areas could feel slow between the major set-piece horror sequences. But that slowness is intentional. It builds the tension, making the sudden scares and the truly disgusting creature designs, like the terrifying Obscura, so much more impactful. My personal experience was spending an hour crawling through a house only to realize I could have completely bypassed it by going through the attic. Player agency in survival is huge here. The Evil Within 2 is worth every penny for its brilliant atmospheric tension, its unforgettable creature design, and its commitment to psychological dread.
3. Mass Effect Andromeda. Alright, let's talk about the big one that everyone, including myself, left unfinished after the rough launch. Mass Effect Andromeda. Yes, the facial animations were a mess, and the dialogue writing had some serious issues initially. But hear me out. The core gameplay is pure sci-fi gold. The core value is the best combat system in the franchise. The mobility and verticality offered by the jetpack fundamentally changed the action RPG loop, making every fight fast, fluid, and tactical. It was a mechanical triumph, honestly. The exploration loop is another highlight. Driving the Nomad across the massive, beautiful alien planets and gradually making them habitable using the viability system is genuinely addictive. This progression feels rewarding. What I disliked was the filler content and the early character interactions. But if you focus on the loyalty missions and the main narrative arc of the Archon, you find a good story underneath the noise. Andromeda is worth every penny for its kinetic combat, massive sci-fi world building, and the satisfaction of colonization.
I say it's working. Let's move.
4. The Order 1886. Rounding out this initial block, we have a game that everyone finished quickly, but many quickly forgot about due to its short length. The Order 1886, however, I argue it's a must-play for its unmatched technical and artistic investment. The core value here is the visual fidelity and atmosphere. This game is a masterclass in graphics, rendering a dark, stunningly detailed Victorian London filled with werewolves and steampunk tech. It's an investment in pure, high-end cinematic presentation. What turned people off was the short runtime and the emphasis on quick time events, or QTEs. But man, the combat system itself is a tight, satisfying third-person shooter with incredibly cool Tesla-powered weaponry. The weight and sound of every shot are perfect. My personal experience was the sheer joy of the world building and the gorgeous character models. The Order is worth every penny because it is a flawless, focused artistic experience that delivers an unforgettable blend of history, fantasy, and technical excellence. Five, Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. Next on our list of comeback kings is a game that truly deserves the title of most underrated open-world crime epic, Sleeping Dogs Definitive Edition. People dropped this because it wasn't GTA, but man, they missed out on a pure gem. The core experience is the vibrant, high-energy atmosphere of Hong Kong. The developers nailed the aesthetic of the neon night markets and the crowded streets. This focus on a non-American city is a huge refresh, making exploration a sensory treat. The combat system is the major reason to buy this. The hand-to-hand brawler mechanics are miles better than its competition, focusing on martial arts, counterattacks, and those amazing environmental takedowns. I honestly couldn't get enough of throwing Triad members into phone booths. My biggest issue, the driving physics were a little too arcadey for my taste, but the trade-off for the incredible story is worth it. Sleeping Dogs is worth every penny for its brutal, satisfying combat, its unforgettable undercover narrative, and its commitment to an authentic setting. 6. Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Let's move to a game that had one of the worst launches in recent memory, but thanks to massive support, became a phenomenal experience. Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Many players quit within the first 10 hours, but the current version is a must-play tactical shooter sandbox. The core value here is the sheer freedom of tactical co-op. They listened to the community and added the immersive mode, which removes the hated gear score, turning the game into a true survival military sim. Planning a silent infiltration with 3 friends is a great challenge. The world of Orowa is massive, diverse, and beautiful. The exploration loop is driven by the desire to find unique gear, clear enemy bases, and master the survival mechanics like managing injuries and stamina. What turned everyone off initially was the repetitive Ubisoft grind and the gear score, but if you play it now in immersive mode, it's pure Ghost Recon goodness. I personally love the gunsmith customization. You can spend hours perfecting your loadout. Breakpoint is worth every penny for its tactical depth, high-fidelity co-op action, and its amazing redemption arc.
7. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. Next up, we have a game that is an essential, profound experience that many people abandon because of its intensity. Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice. This title is a brave, crucial investment in narrative and sound design. The core value is the unmatched psychological immersion. The game uses binaural audio to put Senua's psychosis, the voices of the Furies, right inside your head. It's an incredibly raw and honest portrayal of mental illness, and that sensory experience is why you'll never forget it. The combat system is intimate and deliberate, focusing on heavy parries and simple combo chains. It's not complex, but the emotional context makes every fight against the Norse gods feel like a battle for Senua's sanity. My honest take? Some of the runestone puzzles were simple and felt like slight padding, but the power of the central narrative completely overshadows that. I was absolutely glued to my headphones for the entire journey. Hellblade is worth every penny because it is a masterpiece in sound design, technical performance, and emotionally mature storytelling. 8. Death Stranding.
Rounding out this block, let's talk about the game that polarized everyone and caused millions to abandon it early due to its pacing, Death Stranding. If you quit because you thought it was just a walking simulator, you missed the whole point. The core value is the logistical simulation and the infrastructure loop. The game is about traversing a hostile world, but the addiction is planning your route, managing your cargo, and building roads and zip lines to help yourself and other players. That asynchronous community element is genius. What alienated people was the initial slow, methodical pace. But once you start building and connecting the network, the sense of progression and connectivity is unmatched. I personally became obsessed with seeing other players use my bridges. My biggest issue was the sheer volume of Kojima exposition in the cutscenes, which sometimes felt overwhelming. But the world, the story, and the technical fidelity are worth the investment. Death Stranding is worth every penny because it's a bold, unique piece of artistic science fiction that rewards patience and contribution.
9. Immortals Fenyx Rising. Let's check out a game that many people abandoned because they wrongly dismissed it as a simple copy. Immortals Fenyx Rising. This game is a fantastic investment in puzzle density and pure fun. The core value here is the sheer volume of meaningful content. The entire map is absolutely packed with vaults of Tartaros, which are essentially brilliant, focused physics-based puzzle dungeons. The game constantly rewards curiosity, making exploration addictive. The combat system is fluid, focusing on aerial combos and using your different godly powers, like Ares' Wrath and Heracles' Strength. What I actually loved, despite some people finding it annoying, was the witty narration by Zeus and Prometheus. It gives the game a great lighthearted tone. My one critique is that yes, the basic open world structure is familiar, but the quality of the puzzles completely justifies its existence. Immortals Fenyx Rising is worth every penny because it delivers a massive, charming sandbox and some of the cleverest environmental puzzles in any modern game.
10. Lies of P. Next up, we have a game that tested the patience of many, but is an incredible investment in skill and style, Lies of P. People abandoned this early because the difficulty was absolutely punishing, but the payoff for mastery is huge. The core value is the aggressive, high-stakes combat system. It relies heavily on perfect parry timing and mastering the Fable arts. This is a Souls-like that encourages precise aggression, making every boss fight feel like a brutal, satisfying dance. The weapon assembly system is a game changer. Being able to combine different blades and handles provides an absurd amount of build variety and mechanical depth. I personally loved seeing all the unique attack patterns I could create. What I found frustrating? The hitboxes on some of the early bosses felt a little unfair, forcing me to rely too heavily on dodging instead of parrying. But once you commit to the parry, the game opens up. Lies of P is worth every penny for its unforgettable aesthetic, challenging mechanics, and deeply rewarding progression. What remains of Edith Finch? Let's move to a game that many people skipped entirely because it's often categorized as a walking simulator. What Remains of Edith Finch? This title is an essential investment in narrative creativity and emotional impact. The core value is the sheer brilliance of its vignettes. The game tells the stories of a single family through short, diverse, and incredibly imaginative interactive sequences. One moment you're controlling a cat, the next you're a comic book hero. The mechanical creativity is absurdly high. What turned some people off was the short run time and the lack of traditional combat or puzzles. But honestly, the emotional weight delivered in those 2 hours surpasses games 10 times its length. It's an investment in a pure narrative experience. Edith Finch is worth every penny because it's a masterpiece in interactive storytelling, proving that the most profound experiences don't need 100 hours of grind. 12. Control.
Rounding out this block, we have a game that delivers insane value in physics-based action and unique atmosphere, Control. Many abandoned it due to its initial confusing plot or high difficulty spikes, but it's an essential sci-fi shooter. The core value is the dynamic combat sandbox. As Jesse Faden, using the launch mechanic to rip huge chunks of concrete from the environment and hurl them at enemies is the most satisfying power fantasy in gaming. The environmental destruction is a huge technical achievement. What I initially struggled with was the overwhelming lore. The plot can be confusing because it relies so heavily on reading optional documents. But once I realized the lore was the reward, I dove right in. I personally became obsessed with the Metroidvania-style level design of the Oldest House, constantly unlocking new psychic abilities that gave me access to previous areas. Control is worth every penny for its kinetic combat flow, its unique sci-fi aesthetic, and its deep exploration loop.
Next up, we have a sci-fi horror game that many abandoned due to its brutal combat system, but is an absolute technical showpiece, the Callisto Protocol. This game is an investment in unrelenting visceral atmosphere. The core value is the high-fidelity horror immersion. The game looks absolutely phenomenal on the PS5, rendering the dead moon of Callisto with terrifying detail. The sound design is intense, making every metallic groan and distant scream build incredible tension. The combat system is what turned people off. It's a focused melee system that forces you to dodge and parry to survive. My honest take? The combat felt a little too reliant on quick time events, or QTEs, and the frustrating lack of ammo meant you were constantly locked into melee. But if you can master that rhythm, the dismemberment mechanic is incredibly satisfying. The Callisto Protocol is worth every penny for its unmatched graphics, brutal violence, and focused, claustrophobic survival horror.
14. Far Cry 6. Let's talk about the massive open-world shooter that many people left unfinished because of Ubisoft fatigue. Far Cry 6. This game is a fantastic investment in pure, chaotic fun and the stunning, vibrant world. The core value is the sheer volume of creative mayhem. The Caribbean island of Yara is massive and beautiful, and the game gives you an absurd sandbox of tools like the revolver weapons, flamethrowers, CD launchers, and the Supremo backpacks. That focus on player-driven chaos is why it's worth playing. The gameplay loop is pure addiction, liberating bases, hunting down unique loot, and flying around with your helicopter. My biggest critique is the underuse of the main villain, Giancarlo Esposito. He was brilliant, but the game didn't feature him enough, which diluted the main narrative's impact. I personally loved exploring the entire map and finding every unique yarn story. Far Cry 6 is worth every penny for its vibrant open world, endless creative combat options, and high-value content density.
15. Ghostrunner. Next up, we have an absolute brutal masterpiece that many abandoned because they simply couldn't handle the difficulty, Ghostrunner. This game is an essential investment in unparalleled mechanical speed and precision. The core mechanic that defines this game is one-hit kill gameplay. You die instantly, but so do your enemies. This forces you into a flow state, mastering the wall running, dashing, and sword slicing with surgical precision. The skill curve is steep, but the satisfaction of clearing a complex room is immense. The aesthetic is perfect, a dark, cyberpunk megastructure rendered with sharp visual fidelity. My honest opinion? The difficulty is absolutely relentless, and the instant death meant my controller almost went through the TV a few times. But the payoff is worth the rage. Ghostrunner is worth every penny because it delivers an unmatched sense of flow and speed. It's a masterclass in first-person platforming and action that demands your focus and rewards mastery.
16. Resident Evil Village. Rounding out this block, we have a game that is an essential investment in thematic variety and cinematic horror, Resident Evil Village. Many people abandon this near the end because it shifts heavily into action, but the horror moments are legendary. The core value is the massive thematic shift between locations. In 1 hour, you're in a tense FPS survival scenario fighting Lycans, and the next you're experiencing the incredible psychological horror of the Benevito section. That constant variety keeps the game fresh. The gameplay loop is satisfying, blending tight shooting with inventory management and treasure hunting. My critique is that the final act shifts too heavily into pure action shooter territory, losing some of the classic RE survival tension. I personally think the Castle Dimitrescu section and the Benevito house are two of the best horror segments ever made. Resident Evil Village is worth every penny because it delivers a massive, beautiful, and emotionally charged horror adventure that has unforgettable high points.
17. Yakuza 0. Moving into the final 3, we have a game that many people abandoned simply because the sheer volume of content was overwhelming. Yakuza 0. This prequel is the absolute definitive investment in narrative and chaos. The core value here is the unmatched tunnel whiplash. In 1 minute, you're watching a brilliant, high-stakes crime drama about Kiryu and Majima. The next, you're managing a cabaret club or teaching a dominatrix how to do her job. That blend of emotional depth and ridiculous side content is genius. The combat system is pure satisfaction. It's an incredible brawler where both characters have 3 unique fighting styles you can switch between instantly. The mechanical flow of the fighting is addicting. My biggest critique is that yes, the volume of side content can be distracting if you just want to follow the main plot. I personally spent hours upon hours running Majima's Cabaret Club. It's a full-on management sim. Yakuza 0 is worth every penny because it delivers an unforgettable crime epic and massive longevity through sheer amazing content.
18. Remnant from the Ashes. Next up, we have a game that many abandoned because of its high difficulty and unique genre mix. Remnant from the Ashes. If you are looking for a punishing, rewarding experience, this Souls-like shooter is a must-play. The core value is the procedural generation and co-op complexity. The world layout, bosses, and gear locations change every time you start a new campaign. This forces you and your co-op partners to constantly adapt, providing massive replay value and investment. The gameplay loop is unique. It combines the intense difficulty and stamina management of a Souls game with tight third-person shooting. My honest opinion is that the difficulty spikes can sometimes feel unfair because of the random enemy placements, but the satisfaction of beating a tough boss with a custom build is huge. I personally got hooked on the mod and trait system, experimenting with different elemental and summoner builds. Remnant is worth every penny because it delivers a deep, challenging mechanical experience that is constantly fresh and highly rewarding.
19. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. And finally, we close out this list with a game that was abandoned by some due to its familiar open-world structure, but is an absolute technical showpiece. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. This game is an investment in unparalleled environmental immersion. The core value is the unmatched visual fidelity and vertical traversal. Pandora is massive, dense, and stunningly realized using the Snowdrop engine. Flying around on your Banshee, Ikron, and seamlessly transitioning from the air to the ground is a visual treat that never gets old. The gameplay loop is driven by hunter-gatherer mechanics and resistance against the RDA. You're constantly hunting, crafting, and upgrading your gear, which is a satisfying progression system. My biggest critique is that the mission structures can sometimes fall back on familiar Ubisoft open-world tropes. But honestly, the beauty and the joy of flight completely compensate for any formulaic moments. Frontiers of Pandora is worth every penny for its jaw-dropping graphics, fluid traversal, and vibrant immersive open-world exploration. So there you have it, guys. 19 games that many people abandoned, but are worth every penny. From the narrative masterpiece of Yakuza 0 to the sheer challenge of Lies of P and the visual spectacle of Avatar, these are the titles that deserve a second look. Which game on this list did you abandon but are now going to play? And what true gem did I miss? Let me know in the comments below.